The International Organization of Migration launched its flagship World Migration Report 2022. It reveals a dramatic increase in internal displacements due to disasters, conflict, and violence. The Director General Antonio Vitorino said, quote, "We are witnessing a paradox not seen before in human history. While billions of people have been effectively grounded by COVID, tens of millions of others have been displaced within their own countries." So here is migration by the numbers worldwide, Yo-Yo.
All right.
Okay, there has been a 60% drop in 2020 to 1.8 billion people who took an airplane ride. That is down from 2019, where 4.5 billion people got on an airplane in the year 2019. Now, it could be the same person twice. Obviously, the pilot's flying multiple times.
Oh, okay.
Think about it. There's how many people in the world? 6 billion, 7 billion people in the world? And there's 4.5 billion people flew on an airplane in 2019, but only 1.8 billion because of COVID in 2020. Yeah. According to the report, the number of international migrants has also grown from 84 million globally in 1970 to 281 million people in 2020. That means 281 million people crossed an international border and moved somewhere else.
Wow.
In the year 2020. That's a lot of people.
That's a lot.
Although when global population growth is factored in, the proportion of international migrants has only inched up from 2.3% to 3.6% of the world's population. So even though 281 million people packed their bags, or maybe they don't have any bags to pack and they just put their shoes on, or maybe they don't even have shoes and started walking, who knows? But or got on a plane, 281 million people moved internationally, migrated in 2020. That's 3.6% of the world's population.
Wow.
Now, most people globally, 96.5%, have never left the country where they were born. They still, I mean, you may have traveled to visit someplace, 96%? But 96.5% of people still live in the country where they were born.
Well, okay, lived in the country, but not visited.
I mean, I'm sure they have visited, but still residing, living in the country where they are born.
That's a lot, 96%.
Yeah. Facebook was sued for $150 billion.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, it's no longer Facebook, by the way. They're called Meta. Mm-hmm. And lawyers filed a class action lawsuit in California against Meta, saying that Facebook's arrival in Myanmar helped spread hate speech, misinformation, incitement to violence that amounted to a substantial cause and eventual perpetuation of the Rohingya genocide. Facebook said in a statement it's appalled by the crimes committed against the Rohingya people in Myanmar and has built a team of Burmese speakers and invested in technology to take action. However, the Rohingyas, just for fact-based, they're a Muslim ethnic group. An estimated 1 million Rohingyas are now living in refugee camps. In 2018, UN human rights experts are investigating attacks against the Rohingya, said Facebook had played a substantial role in spreading hate speech. More than 10,000 Rohingyas have been killed. More than 150,000 were subject to physical violence. The lawsuit says Facebook's algorithms amplified hate speech against the Rohingya people, and the company didn't spend enough money to hire moderators and fact-checkers who spoke the local languages or understood the political situation. Now, Facebook arrived in Myanmar in 2011, arranged for millions of residents to access the internet for the first time, according to the lawsuit filed in California Superior Court. The lawsuit says the company did little to warn people about the dangers of online misinformation, did little to tell people about fake accounts, tactics employed by the military in its campaign against the Rohingyas. All I can say is this: if they are successful, then there's going to be a lot of copycat lawsuits.
I was about to say, there's going to be a lot.
And Facebook will no longer be Facebook.
What do you think they're going to do? They're probably going to they'll probably settle silently or something, right?
I don't know. I think Facebook's going to fight to the bitter end. There are now millions of Afghan girls and women who are going to lose their freedom to go to school, their freedom to work, their freedom to participate in political, economic, and social life of Afghanistan.
And this because the Taliban?
Because the Taliban's taking over. Now, Zarifa Ghaffari, 27 years old, she became the youngest and first female mayor in Afghanistan in Maidan Wardak province. She is the mayor to this day. The Taliban has vowed to kill her. Her father, Wasi Ghaffari, was gunned down November 15th when the Taliban tried to kill her. On Sunday, with the Taliban preparing to assume control in the capital after its quick advances across Afghanistan, she was waiting for the Islamic militants to come to her home and kill her. She told the local news, "I'm sitting here waiting for them to come. There is no one to help me or my family. I'm just sitting with them and my husband, and they will come for people like me, and they will kill me. I can't leave my family in any way. Where would I go?" Meanwhile, 2.8 million people who have been able to get out, mostly women and children. UN Refugee Agency Commissioner Filippo Grandi said the amount of people on the move following Russia's invasion of Ukraine constitutes the fastest growing refugee crisis in Europe since World War II.
Wow.
It is reminiscent of the 2015 migrant crisis spurred by the war in Syria, but that was 1 million asylum seekers who came from Syria. We are almost triple that in less than 3 weeks of war. 2.8 million people crossing the border. Grandi told French radio station France Inter the sheer number of people fleeing for safety is a terrifying figure. And while many refugees going to other countries have family ties, what we fear is a second wave of persons who have a good deal less resources and connections and who will be much more vulnerable. Most of those fleeing Ukraine are women and children. As I said, the men cannot leave. The men 18 to 60 are banned from leaving because they are needed for the war effort. Nations directly to the west and south of Ukraine have accepted large numbers of refugees. Moldova has 278,000 Ukrainians. The other concern that's happening besides the sheer amount of refugees is that there's a lot of reports that some women and children are going missing.
Whoa.
Because they cross over the border, they don't have cars, they don't have transportation, and there are people there who are waiting to help them. Mm-hmm. And obviously most people are very good. But there are reports that there are women and children who get into cars.
Oh man! So what are they, human trafficking?
Yeah, wow. As they cross the border, for people who are there presumably to help them, and some of these women and children have not been heard from since.
Jeez.
And the concern is, yes, human trafficking. Human Rights Watch said in a report that this is a sad story. Cameroonian authorities are subjecting dozens of asylum seekers deported by the United States to serious human rights violations. According to Human Rights Watch, people returned to Cameroon have faced arbitrary arrest and detention, enforced disappearances, torture, rape, and other violence, extortion, unfair prosecutions, confiscation of their national identifications, harassment, and abuses against their relatives. Many also reported experiencing excessive force, medical neglect, and other mistreatment in ICE custody in the U.S. This story came out about Cameroon, but this could be many, it's sad, extraordinarily sad, could be many countries. You know, what happens, Jonathan, is when the United States deports people back to their particular country, many countries, they don't say, "Hey, welcome back, you're back in our country." They actually take you as a criminal because they say, "Oh, you got deported from the United States, you're a criminal," and then they put you in jail, and lots of abuse happens. It happens a lot, unfortunately. This just happens to be being, the spotlight they're putting on Cameroon right now, and maybe it's happening worse in Cameroon than it happens in other countries. But throughout my entire career, most immigration practitioners know that in many countries, when you get deported, you're not getting deported and like, "Oh, I'm on the beach the next day." No, you're in jail.
Right.
And you didn't do anything wrong. You got deported from a country, but you're now being treated like a criminal. Now, there's one thing putting someone in jail, is another thing torturing them. Cameroon, I think, is doing some pretty bad things to people getting deported, probably because they tried to claim asylum and said some bad things about the leaders there.
That's exactly what I was about to say. I feel like anybody who claims asylum is already kind of in it has a bad taste in the country that they're claiming it against, because it's like you're going to another country and you're talking mess about what we're doing to you out here. So if US just throws these people who are literally running for their lives right back to the people that they're running from, that's horrible. You know that they're going to be torturing them.
Yeah. Now the people interviewed were deported during the Trump administration with hardline immigration policies, narrowed access to asylum, racist asylum interviews, anti-migrant rhetoric, and those conditions in Cameroon have not improved. They were running from very poor conditions in Cameroon. The grant for asylum for protection of Cameroonians dropped to less than 24% between 2019 and 2020. Over 100 Cameroonians were deported in 2020. Most of them are in jail. Many are giving reports of abuse, rape, and torture there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. The Biden administration took a positive step by canceling a February 2021 deportation flight to Cameroon, although in October 2021 they did deport others. But this happens, sadly, this happens a lot. And it happens not just in Cameroon, in many countries. We're just putting the spotlight on Cameroon. And for the United States to say we're not going to send somebody back to be tortured, but here they are sending people back to be tortured.
That's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah. Very, very sad.
Hey, Brad Squad. Jonathan Elias here with Christy Guevara Flanagan and Maite Zubiare, co-directors, writers, and producers of the award-winning short film Águilas. Now, Águilas, or Eagles, is a short film about Águilas del Desierto, or the desert eagles. Once a month, this group of volunteers brave the unforgiving heat of the Arizona desert to recover migrants who have been reported missing by their loved ones.
It's a search and rescue group founded by two migrants from the state of Oaxaca who had the tragedy of finding two relatives dead in the desert, Don Eli and Doña Marisela Ortiz. Don Eli found the body of his brother and his cousin in the desert. And once this tragedy happened to them, they decided to devote their lives to help families find closure in Mexico, increasingly so in Central America, and also in the United States. And since 10 years ago, they go out into the desert at least once a month for a search and rescue mission that lasts the whole weekend and look for the remains of migrants and attend to the pleas of families.
Give families closure for something that remains untalked about, generally unheard of in the media, not known what actually happened to people that disappeared. So they're really trying to add closure, give information, and find people.
Yeah, tragically, it appeals to everybody. There's no member of our national Latinx community that hasn't been touched by somebody who never made it, by somebody who was deported multiple times, for somebody who spent months and even years in detention centers. It's a huge issue that affects everybody. Since the 90s, close to 4,000 migrants have been recovered from the southern Arizona desert. Close to 2,500 have not been identified, if not more. And it is said, and our documentary mentions it, that out of each body found, there are other 5 that the desert will never give back.
Why is it important to tell this story?
Well, I think there's so many reasons, and it also depends on the audience. For a broader audience, they really are not aware of what's happening at the border. They're not aware that people are dying and how they're dying. They're not aware of the policies that have come about since the 90s that have really made this journey that much riskier and lethal, in fact. Also, people that are not familiar with the experience of crossing get a sense of what it's like. As you know, there's so much risk involved. The only reason you would cross is because your conditions are so difficult where you are, unlivable where you are, that this is an option.
Thanks for watching. For more Brad Show Live, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.